Good morning. Yes, we're live and in person. Welcome to, it's almost November. Can you believe that? And November is Thanksgiving. December is Christmas. Are you ready for that? Is there anybody that has all of their Christmas shopping done? So we're glad that you're here, and we're excited to hear from Bruce Martin today. My understanding is that he has been involved in tour guiding in San Antonio forever, since birth. Since birth. He is the premier guide. Let me bring you up to date with what's happening next week. Somehow slipped my mind that there were 5 Fridays in October. And so I was like, what am I going to do? So I did talk to Laura from downstairs, and she's going to bring up children from the Children's Center. And I've got some candy that if you want to bring candy, you can, but you don't have to. If you want to dress for Halloween, you can. I don't know how challenging that is for us to do that, but if you are creative and adventurous and you want to find an old Halloween costume that you have. But we will be interacting with children from the Student Center next week for Halloween. And then Laura will give us a little brief explanation of what the Children's Center does, and then be able to answer some questions, and then we'll have lunch together. So that's what's happening next week. There is a sign up for it out on the table. And then on the 7th, we've got Sean Chandri coming. He is a lawyer who manages senior affairs. And so has a whole list of things that, and is eager to come and answer questions. And then there's a Presbyterian children's school in Pakistan that he's also connected with. And I can't imagine he wouldn't talk about that. And then on the 14th, Robin has been working hard to compile a video for Veterans Day. And some of you have taken part in that. She has done some interviews and taken some of your pictures. And I've seen the final draft. And it's going to be a good one. You won't want to miss, and that's Friday, the 14th of November. And then on Friday, the 21st, we're going to do Thanksgiving dinner here like we have the last couple of years. And our kitchen is going to put out a good lunch with Thanksgiving theme. So don't want to miss that one. And then on the 28th, there's no keys because the 27th is Thanksgiving. And then December 5th, we have the Cox Family Singers coming for Christmas. And then on December 7th, I think we might have a few tickets left for Sound of Music. So if you're interested in that, let me know. Yes, was that a question? Thank you. So without any further of my mumbling on, yes, sir.
On November 14th, and Kathy and Serrano and I, at least, are going to be helping with Morningside Ministries. They're going to do a fall fest from 1 to 3 p.m. Now, I realize that a lot of us would be here, and I understand that, and I can open it up to other people coming by letting Lindsay Selly, which I've already let Lindsay Selly know, and she can put that in the church programs and so forth. But I just wanted you to know that. And really what we're doing is just helping with the residents to get to the booths, and then afterwards maybe helping to take them back and things like that. We don't have any other specific responsibilities yet, but Kathy and I will figure it out, I guess, as we go along here, and I just want everybody to know.
So that's on the 21st?
So that's the 14th.
On the 14th, same day as the video. So possibly you could scoot over there if you don't take so much time. If you eat your lunch quickly, then you can scoot over there, and maybe even to get there a little bit late, there's still going to be things to do. So we'll try to remember that. Oh, okay. 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 All right, then. Well, Bruce, are you ready to address us and wow us with your knowledge of San Antonio and the best places to see?
Prepare to be wowed.
Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. My name is Bruce Martin, and it is my great pleasure and my great privilege to be invited to speak to you guys today. I am a tour guide here in San Antonio, professional tour guide. I do mostly walking tours. I do some bus tours. I particularly like it when friends call me and say, hey, I've got family coming in from out of town. I don't know what to do with them. Can you take them for an afternoon, show them around, whatever? So I do some of that. I do a lot of tours for a company called Tours by Locals, which is a Canadian company, and they engage guides around the world to do really kind of specific, non-traditional tours, but they're pretty specific about the type of people they want representing them, and so it's my great privilege to be representing them here in San Antonio. So I do some mural tours, I do public art tours, I do architecture tours. Of course, I do an Alamo Plaza tour, and Missions, of course, and River. But I also do nature tours and so forth. So try to get off track a little bit. And it's very rewarding when I have people come to San Antonio, have a nice time, call me, hey, we're coming back to San Antonio. So anyway, I really have fallen in love with San Antonio. I'm a native Texan, but I'm not a native San Antonian. See if you agree with me on this, because I feel very strongly that it's true. And that is, I think a lot of times people that are immigrants to a place, people that move to a place and adopt a town, often have a greater appreciation for that place than people that have spent their whole lives there. So I've been in San Antonio for 45 years, moved here in 1980, and I just absolutely love San Antonio. And I love sharing San Antonio. I love collecting stories about San Antonio. I'll do some of that today. And a couple of my friends from the Postcard Club are here, and which is a nice, encouraging group that I'm also part of. And one of the things that I collect in old postcards is San Antonio buildings no longer standing. And so that's kind of where that collection kind of spun into this slideshow. So we'll go through here. Sometimes when I'm doing a slideshow, my wife will come in and look over my shoulder, and she said, can I see what you're working on, honey? And I said, yeah, sure. And so here's what I'm looking at. I'm working on a slideshow now. And she'll lean in and she'll say, you can't have a slideshow with 250 slides. I said, I don't have 250 slides. I got 248. So anyway, so I don't have that many today, that's for sure. So, okay. So let's go forward. Robin's going to do the forwarding for me. Let's do another one. Okay, let's do another one. Welcome. Let's do another one. Okay, and so this building here. So this, of course, is our central library, and it's been open 30 years now. And I really love this building. It doesn't look like anything else in San Antonio. How many people were here when it opened? Yeah, it's a pretty wonderful building, and it didn't look like anything else that we had seen, certainly not in the form of a library. And one of my favorite stories involves this building. And so some of you may remember, for the first year that the library was open, they did what some large cities that have signature central libraries that are architecturally significant have done, and that is, for the first year they were open, they would invite writers to come in and read their work. And sometimes it was a poet, sometimes it was a nonfiction writer, sometimes a novelist, etc. But they would always have three, and they would have somebody local, somebody from elsewhere in Texas, and somebody of national standing. And they did it, I can't remember if it was every quarter or every other month, but my wife and I always came down because it was wonderful to be read to, and it's all very positive because, you know, people said nice things about our new library. And if you remember when it opened, the auditorium had purple carpet, and they had bright blue walls and bright yellow walls around. It just was incredible color. Prudence McIntosh, the writer from Dallas, was there, and she was introduced, and she went to the podium. She looked around and she said, "I love being back in San Antonio, where purple is considered a neutral color." And so that's how I feel about San Antonio. Really, I'm crazy. So let's do next one. Okay, and so again, the research that I don't do alone. I get a lot of support from different entities here in town. The Texana Collection at the Central Library next. Conservation Society, Best Standiford, the librarian there, and then next, UTSA Senior Curator Tom Shelton. These people are really great on San Antonio history and very sharing and are very supportive of me. So this presentation wouldn't be possible without their support. Okay, next. All right, so back to this building. So this is the first and only building, City of San Antonio building, that was selected through an architectural design competition. So they sent out a request for qualifications. They got a bunch back. They selected 4. And then they gave them a stipend, and I can't remember if it was $5,000 or $10,000. And they said, okay, you 4 go back, flesh out your proposal, make models, and submit them. And so we got 4 models, and they were put on display at the old Central Library, and they were under plexiglass boxes. They sat about 36 by 36. And I'll be honest, this was not my favorite of the 4. You know, I'm just an old white guy, right? I wanted, columns and staircases, something that looked traditional. This very much not look traditional. So Ricardo Legarreta, Mexico City architect, primary architect on this, and a very charming man. He died about a little over 10 years ago, but he enjoyed coming to San Antonio because he liked the positive glow that this building cast upon him. And I heard him speak once at UTSA, and he was showing slides of his work, and then he started showing slides of small buildings in Mexico. And we've seen them, little cottages, little stucco cottages, bright blue, turquoise, red, orange, yellow. And he showed a bunch of these, and he said, as Mexicans, we are irresponsible about our use of color. And so, very true. So let's go again here. And so we just got a freshen up paint job in 2021. And for those of you that spend time downtown, and I'm assuming all of you do, you remember it took them about 18 months to finish this roadway, but they also put in those new trees. So your question to me at this point should be, well, what was there before? So next slide. So the Sears was there before. Okay, this is the Romana Plaza Sears. And this was here for, as you can see, almost 50 years. And they had on the second floor and on the first floor those wonderful plate glass windows, really significant. Next. And then another shot of the same building. Now what made this site attractive, and there was some conversation about where this new central library should be, and some people, me, wanted it really more in downtown rather than on the edge of downtown. But the other argument was, well, this is kind of the entryway coming into downtown if you're coming from the north, San Pedro, 10, etc. The other attraction to this site, to the city, was it had a parking garage. So you didn't have to build that. So they used that parking garage and added 2 floors. Okay, next slide. So I don't know why I bought this postcard years ago, but I did, and finally have the opportunity to use it in a slideshow. So down there in the corner, Plaza Store, Soledad at Navarro. Show of hands, the last person who bought their mink at the Sears, anybody? Okay, next slide. All right, so this is the Tower Life building, or the Smith-Young Tower, which is a 1929 building. And so where we're looking south. And so can you see that there's the bridge in the foreground? And so down below is the first level of the sub-street level of the Tower Life building. This was the site of the first Sears in San Antonio, Texas. So they were here for 10 years, 1929, 1930. They say it took 84 train car loads of merchandise to fill up this Sears. And so they were in the basement, first floor, second floor, third floor, fifth floor, here for 10 years. Now you see the sign, okay, and let's imagine we're going to go on the opposite side of that sign and look back where we're standing now. So the next slide. Okay, apologize for the graininess. This is a postcard that I've enlarged, but you see the Sears and Roebuck sign again, all right? What's that brown building in the background? It's on the opposite side of the river. Well, it's this building. So this is at the corner, as you can see, Market and St. Mary's. So to our right, when we're viewing here, would be the Alamo National Bank building. Now it's the Drury Riverwalk Plaza and Suites. You can see peeking out of the right-hand side, can you see the Bexar County Courthouse there? Okay, so show me the next slide. So this is the firehouse. This is the Central Fire Department. So fire department, but it's also where it was offices for the fire department on the top floor. Next slide. And so next door to this is where they had their training and did their drills. And so you can see these firefighters are practicing holding trampoline for people to jump off and carrying someone in distress and rappelling here and all this kind of sort. They've got that tall ladder and so forth. So next slide. So what's here now? This site was cleared, scraped clean. You can see it's right next door to the river. And what went in here, next slide, is this building. So this was the Central Library. It was built right around Hemisphere time, 1968. And this was almost for 30 years, the Central Library for San Antonio, Texas. Now, one of the knocks on this building was, where are the windows? How come we have a building that hardly has any windows? So when this was modified, we opened the new building, the Enchilada Red Library. Next slide. Lake Flato, a local architecture firm, went in and put in windows in this building. This building's still owned by the city of San Antonio, but Lake Flato put that wonderful balcony up there on the top, and that's kind of a special event room. I don't know if you've been there. If you have, it's really wonderful. And that balcony kind of sticks out, as you can see, so you can look north on St. Mary's, see all the way up to the edge of town, downtown, and you can look south, where St. Mary's has that funny little dog leg, and you begin to see the King William Historic District. Next slide. Just another view. Next slide. And of course, Biga is down there on the first floor. So it's a very different building, but it's the same. Next. Okay, so I go to a dark slide to say, Bruce, take a breath. We're going to talk about something different. Okay. All right, so you'll recognize this building as the federal building on Alamo Plaza, right? This is a Depression-era building, built, finished in 35, 36. And it occupies the entire block. So if you were a bird and you looked down on this building, you would see that this block is 5-sided because Travis kind of makes a funny little correction behind this building. What you'd also see that isn't apparent from here is that this building has a big central courtyard. So not only do people on the outside of the edge of this building have windows, but the people inside have windows too. They did a big restoration in about 2001. And made it all very much more energy efficient. But your question to me is, what was here before? Let me show you. Next slide. This building. And so this was the Central Post Office for San Antonio. This was the main post office for the city of San Antonio. This is an 1880s building, very striking looking building. You see the Elks Club kind of sticking its nose right around the corner. Next slide. Now, this I wanted to show you. Again, these are old postcards. So if I don't credit an image of a source, it's either a photograph that I took or it's a postcard from my collection. But I want to point out, so this building now, you can see it only went halfway down the block. So there's an alley behind it, and you have the old Arnold Hotel there. Okay, next slide. And so what the situation was is San Antonio had grown so quickly that this building, where they did all the sorting and distribution of mail, San Antonio had grown so quickly that they didn't have enough floor space for the capacity that they needed to do all that sorting. So it was agreed that this building was going to get torn down, waited a while, Depression hit, they tore it down, and the new building kind of became two things. One, a replacement, but it also became a make-work project. Next slide. So here's the Elks Club you can see around the corner. And if you look very closely there, can you see kind of coming off the roof there near the balcony, BPOE, Benevolent and Protective Order of Elks. Okay, next. I like this as an old postcard. I like this image because I like that little bicycle leaned up against the front of the building there. Okay, next. All right, so here's this building. Okay, now what happens? Next slide. Okay, now you get this. Now, when this building opened in 1936, what they did is they relocated every federal agency in Bexar County into this building. Now that's not true anymore, but that's what happened then. And this was, again, during the Depression, so a public building like this, significant building like this, what did they do? They said, let's decorate it. So the next slide. So they sent out a call for artists, and 185 people responded, and an artist named Howard Cook was selected. And he did a mural, 800 square feet. It's 18 panels all around the interior of the lobby. It's really beautiful, and it's fresco. So he was painting on wet masonry, did all the work himself. He had 2 years to do it. He finished early. He finished in 18 months. Like I said, did all the work himself. Now the building is open. So for a year and a half, he's in there painting on scaffolding, and people are coming and going because they're working there, or they're just going in to buy something at the post office or get their mail, et cetera, et cetera. And so he began to develop friendships and relationships. People would talk to him and so forth. He finished early. He was paid $12,000 for his work, and he quite liked this. It was called, the title of the piece is San Antonio's Importance in Texas History. I'm just going to show you a couple more of the images next. Battle of the Alamo. Texas becomes a state. Next, cattle drives. Okay. There are a lot of stories about Cook and this mural. They cleaned the mural up. Let's go back to, why don't we? They cleaned the mural up a number of years ago, so it really pops. The colors are really fabulous. And one of the stories goes that when he was all completely finished and everything was unveiled, that people that he had become friends with, their faces. All right, next slide. Okay, so I'm not sure whose face that is. Maybe people got in an argument. That's my face. No, it's my face. That's your face. No, that's your face. All right, so back to Alamo Plaza. So this is a long shot. Now, this is a postcard. So we have a postcard, and sometimes they're postmarked, so that gives you a sense of where it is in time. When you don't have that, how do you figure out? Well, I was always taught if you're doing research and you're trying to date something, a photograph, one way is to look at the vehicles. Okay, what years are the vehicles, or are they even vehicles there? Are there horse-drawn carriages only, et cetera, et cetera? Another way is what this is. So you can see there, you can see the 1880s post office. So we know that building was torn down in 1933, 34. So this is before that. But look at the building, the red brick building that's over to the left on the image. So that building was built in 1896. Okay, so we know it's at least 1896. The building that's just in front of it, that little kind of white building, is a three-story 1883 building designed by Alfred Giles. And that red brick building that I'm talking about, that five-story building there, when that was built in 1896, again, architect Alfred Giles here in San Antonio, that was the tallest building in the city of San Antonio, 5 stories tall. It was built by Sam Maverick's son, Sam Maverick II, and it was a bank. And it had a fabulous parlor on the first floor where they sold the finest whiskeys, and then champagne and wine from around the world, which all sounds pretty fabulous. Let's go to the next slide. Yeah, and it had an elevator, a steam-powered elevator, and so it had all this decoration all there on the balcony. So a really kind of fabulous building for the town at the time. But it was just a bank, Maverick Bank, but it was a tough time to be a banker, and he was out of business in less than 10 years, and so he had to end up selling the property. Now, this building across the street, can you see the funny little cupola? So that's the Moore building, and so that's a 5-story building, and keep an eye on that one too. So let's go next. Okay, again, the same shot or same view. You can see the old post office there, and now the building directly across Houston Street. This is Houston Street looking straight ahead. Now you can see directly across from the Maverick Bank building is the Gibbs building, built 1909, 1910. Wait a minute, where's that building with the cupola on it? The Moore building. What happened to this building is the same thing that happened in quite a number of buildings in San Antonio. They wanted to get bigger, so they scraped those cupolas off and they added a 6th floor. That happens across San Antonio over and over again. Okay. So Maverick lost the building. It was owned by, then went ownership by a guy named Swearingen, who was an attorney, and a woman, Winifred McGraw. And they owned this building, and ultimately they sold it to Mrs. Steves, Edward Steves' widow. Now, can you see closely that little, see the red building next door? That was that 3-story white building. You can't always trust these postcards because sometimes they get colored when they're being manufactured back in Chicago, and the buildings aren't always matching what they really are on the ground. But can you see very closely, can you make out what that says on that little white letters on the side of that pink building? Hotel Alamo, exactly right, exactly right. Now, they're doing construction down on Alamo Plaza, and that sign reappeared when they tore down a building, and I'll show it to you. Okay, so this building lasted till right around 1920, next slide, and this building went up. So this is the Woolworths, 5 and dime. 1921 they opened, and there you can see that's that Hotel Alamo sign. So there's a little gap between this building, the Woolworths, and the 1883 limestone building. Okay, next slide. Just to show you what it looked like, so there's the Woolworths, a little bit on the right. There's what was the Palace Cinema for a time, and then that's that 1883 building, also Alfred Giles. The state went in, said this kind of stuff, next slide, said we've had it with this kind of stuff. If we're going to be serious about making Alamo Plaza meaningful, reverent, historic, then we got to get rid of this kind of stuff. So they bought that entire block, tore this building down, next slide, and next slide. And so they've torn that building down, and there's that Hotel Alamo. 100+ years later, that sign is still there. I was recently talking to my friend who's the architect for the Alamo Foundation there. And I said, are you going to save this? Are you going to work it into the design somewhere? And she said, she didn't exactly say no, but she said, we photographed it and we've documented it. Which means no. Okay. But this property, next slide, is in the process of being turned into the visitor center and museum for the Alamo. Finally get a meaningful museum and visitor center. It's going to cost, we've got $550 million dedicated to this, so taking it really seriously. So they're keeping the walls of the Woolworths building. Next slide. And you can see, so what they're doing now is they're down below grade. There's a basement there, so they're putting in elevator stuff, and they're doing the same thing at that 1883 building. And then they'll have that modern building where that gap was, where they tore down the Palace Cinema. Next. So this is what they're building. So they're going to add a 4th floor all the way across the top. They're going to fill in that gap with a new building. The 1st floor is going to be free, and then this top floor, this 4th floor, that's going to be their moneymaker. So that's where you're going to get married, or that's when you're going to have a reunion, or that's where you're going to have a special Christmas party, et cetera, et cetera. So that's how that'll work. Okay, next. All right, so I apologize for the fuzziness of this issue, of this photograph. I'm standing on the top of the St. Anthony Hotel, and I wanted to take a picture of this. What did you take a picture of, Bruce? A parking lot? That's exactly what I was taking a picture of. So you see in the foreground, this is Travis Park. Everybody get oriented. Travis Park, so I'm on top of the St. Anthony Hotel, and that's Navarro Street. They're kind of coming out of the bottom left corner of the image. Okay, next slide. So what was there before, Bruce? And the answer is, it was the Travis Club. And the Travis Club was a private men's club. And I don't mean men's club like today's strip joint. It was a meeting place where business people, and it was somewhat exclusive, you had to be nominated, where they would go and conduct business. And if they were traveling, there would be a similar building, similar club, private men's club, in other towns that you would visit. They had a 3-lane bowling alley in here. They had a swimming pool. They had a bar, of course. But I like this postcard for a number of reasons. This building was built in 1911. I like this postcard for a number of reasons. I think we often forget how much residential property there was in the downtown area before everything moved away from downtown. Okay, next slide. This is a drawing before the actual building was built. Another postcard. Yes, next slide. And so here it is here. The challenge was that this private club began to have problems keeping members and getting new members. But if you were an officer based in San Antonio, a military officer, you were eligible to be part of this club. Fink Cigar, Mr. Fink was a member, and so they said to him, you know, sure would be nice if we had our own special cigar. Next slide, please. So he created a Travis Club cigar, still made by the Fink Company, Fink Cigar Company here in San Antonio over 100 years later. Next slide. But what happened is they ended up losing the building, and the Elks Club, remember their building got torn down on Alamo Plaza, so they ended up buying this building. But they had the same thing. Like a lot of fraternal organizations, in order to keep the money flowing, you have to get new members. And so they were here for into the 1950s and finally said kaput, and the bank across the street, San Antonio Bank and Savings, bought this building with best intentions, and it sat vacant for decades. Next slide. And they tore it down. And so Leroy Denman was the chairman of the bank, and he's quoted in this article where he says, this is 1978, this was the first implosion in San Antonio. And actually the fire chief was opposed to this because he thought there was enough that could go wrong that we shouldn't take this chance. But actually, oddly, this was something that went to city council for approval because it was the first one, and they approved it. And the chief was concerned about gas lines in the area and getting those ruptured. But it came down, and Denman had these great promises that, you know, we're going to put something in there meaningful, but for right now, we're just going to temporarily have a surface parking lot. Temporarily have a surface parking lot. 88, 98, 2008, 2018, 45 years later, another image. And so here's a picture, just a color picture. Now, this was the first implosion, and you can see it was happened in the summertime. So people, if they knew then what they know today, and this happened on a Sunday, they would have said, those of you in the bank building right directly across the street, this kind of mid-century building that you can see there on the left, those of you that are leaving for work, make sure and remind the building operations operator to turn off the HVAC system so that all this dust doesn't get sucked into the building on Sunday after the big implosion. Somebody didn't do that, and the place was covered in dust inside because of it. Okay, so your question to me is, well, what's there now, Bruce? And the answer is parking lot. Okay, next slide. And they even made a film of it. Okay, next slide. And so there it sits, the surface parking lot, but we still remember Travis Club because, next slide, still have the cigar, still called the Travis Club, and if you buy this box of cigars, next slide, you've even got a picture of the Travis Club. Gone but not forgotten. Okay, next slide, next slide. Okay, so I told the St. Anthony, so just to give you an orientation. So imagine that you and I are standing in front of the St. Anthony between those two entrances, okay? So that would be Travis Street. So imagine we're standing on front of the building on the sidewalk between those two entrances. Everybody with me? Okay, now we're going to look to our right, next slide, and we're going to see this. So this is Travis Street, so we're looking east on Travis Street. With me? And I'm looking at that little kind of mid-century building right there at the corner. Next slide. And so this was built in the 70s, this was built as a drive-through bank for a savings and loan, farm and home savings and loan. And so you would enter the driveway on Travis, so about where that white car is that you see in the street. and you go around this building, and then the driveway comes out to the left. And so I like this little building. I mean, it's underutilized now. It's just used as a headquarters for a parking management company. They manage some parking lots in downtown and manage the parking for the St. Anthony. But I like the little design about it. One of my favorite things is buildings that occupy a corner that have the entry tilted so that the entry faces the corner. And that's what this building does. So I like this building. But your question to me is, what was here before? The answer is, next, the very first synagogue in South Texas. And so this is Temple Bethel, which is the Reformed Church synagogue. And as you can see, very early, 1874. And so big building. And so this would be where the Jewish business class essentially would be. So they're worshiping in English. Men and women are worshiping together. So, you know, Joskies, Oppenheimer, Pincus, Sattels. So the business world within the Jewish community. So this building lasted for about 25 years. And they tore this building down to make a new synagogue. So next. And so this building went in right around the turn of the century. Now, while this building was under construction, so where did they worship? They're worshiping on Saturdays, right? So where did they worship? First Baptist Church, 2 blocks away. Let them use their church. So another image here, I've got the same one. Yeah, exactly, same building. Okay, this building lasted about 25 years. And they said, you know, now we're going to build a new building. Next. And that's the building that they occupy today. That's at the corner of Ashby and Belknap. Really handsome building, really handsome building. Okay, so next slide. So I see this building and you say, well, you know, it's kind of an underwhelming building here. It's too bad there's really nothing to tell you that there's once the significance of this site. So as you're walking, this is Travis, remember? So as you're walking down Travis, we're walking east, alongside that building, next slide, you look over and you see there is a little marker. First synagogue in South Texas, 1874. Next slide. Next slide. I like streetscapes, particularly San Antonio, because there's lots going on. I like to look at all the detail. And so not having grown up here, you know, I imagine that I was here in this time. One of the things that's interesting about this photograph that I like, this is of course Houston Street from Alamo Plaza, is can you see Summers Drug there on the right? Yes. Can you see the Woolworths on the left? Yes. And then see the Foam Bees sign? Go past the Foam Bees sign. Can you see that red sign? Anybody recognize what that is? Neisner's. Neisner's. Those are three of the 7 businesses that peacefully integrated their lunch counter in 1960. And that's pretty early in the South for a peaceful integration of a lunch counter. Next slide. And then here's kind of that same view, and I love this image, you know, kind of because of all these lit up. And it's a little difficult to see, but you can see all the way down Houston Street. And on the left-hand side, that little spire that's sticking up, that's the Alameda way down there. But if take my word for it, you can read these. Texas Theater shows up there as well. Neisner's, of course, the Majestic. You can read, etc. I just wish the person who was taking this photograph had gone to Woolworths and said, "Hey, turn your sign on for crying out loud! I'm making a wonderful photograph tonight." Next slide. But Neisner's is the building I want to talk about. So this is a building that went in shortly after World War II. And Neisner's was a company that was across 17 states. And this was the second Neisner's in Texas. The first one was in Lubbock, of all places. And this was this very modern-looking building. This building was designed by Atlee Ayers and his son, Robert Ayers. They're really known for the Smith-Young Tower, the Tower Life building. They're also known for their work out at Randolph Air Force Base, as well as lots of residential structures across San Antonio. So this is their design. It has this blade sign. We call that sign that comes off the side of a building perpendicular as a blade sign. So next slide. This is the building that was there before, an 1890s building. And this was an office building upstairs, and then this was a retail down first level. Now, what do you see when you look at this? I mean, you could try to date it. This is sometime after 1904. The first automobile that was sold in San Antonio was in 1904. So here in this image, we can see what? We can see horse-drawn carriages, but we can also see automobiles. So this then would probably be in the early teens, maybe before World War I. The other thing that jumps out at you here is all those open windows. It's 100 degrees in San Antonio, and we've got all our windows open and fans going. What else does that mean? That means we have paperweights all over the place because we don't want stuff blowing off. Paperweights are kind of obsolete now, but that's what they needed paperweights for in the business. Next image, just another image. This one's a little later because there are no horse-drawn carriages there. So this is the Hicks building that was torn down to make way for the Neisner building. Next. Okay, so here's this image again. Now, when I moved to San Antonio in 1980, Neisner's was gone. Neisner's had closed in 78. So do you remember what was here at this location? Next slide. Antique Sampler Mall. Antique Sampler Mall. And again, it was underutilized. They were just on first level and the basement, so all the buildings upstairs weren't there. The sign, of course, is gone, but if you look very closely, you can see where the sign would have been connected to the building. Can you see there on the far left-hand side of this image? You know, it's not being looked after, it's getting mold and so forth. The air conditioner went kaput, and then this building sat vacant for 20 years. It's a prominent location. It's at the corner of Broadway and Houston. And a really handsome building, really not being looked after. But, next slide, Marriott came in and did a nice rehab, added 2 floors on top. There's back to this thing again. Added 2 floors on top, and now it's a nice example of rehabbing and a reuse, changing a department store now to a hotel. It's a nice, well-maintained property. Now, just as an aside, right next to it on the left-hand side of that image, it was the J.C. Penney's, and that building also had an extra floor added to it. So 1 floor next door, 2 floors here, and then coming off the corner of the screen right here is the Moore building, which had that 6th floor added as well. It's all over downtown. Next. Okay, next. All right, anybody familiar with these? So these are Sanborn's fire insurance maps. Anybody familiar with these? So in the day, a company called Sanborn's, and what they would do is they would go and they would draw maps, very detailed maps, in large cities across the country. All right, so what? Well, what they would do, include the type of detail that an insurance carrier would want to know. So I might be an insurance carrier in St. Louis, and I get a call from somebody in San Antonio and say, I've got my property at 458 Pershing Avenue, would you insure me? And how would he know? He's not going to come down to San Antonio and look. Well, he has a subscription, and he has so many of these from so many cities, and he has this big catalog, and he can turn the page and find that address, and from a drawing like this, next slide, he can find all kind of detail. So he can look at this very quickly and see the pink is a brick building. So does that matter, fire insurance? Absolutely. Does it matter who's next door to you? Yeah. Does it matter what their use is? Yeah. So the brown is wood. It tells you what the surface of the streets are around this area, how wide the streets are. Is that going to affect fire service and fire response time? Absolutely. It tells you how thick, what the diameter of the water pipes that are serving your area. So all these things were very helpful to you if you were going to be writing insurance. These Sanborn's map are a godsend to people that are doing research on a house or a city or a neighborhood. Someone like me that wants to know, well, what was here before? You can go back. You can go back. The San Antonio Public Library has these. The DRT, Daughter Republic of Texas, has these. Central Library San Antonio has these, and the University of Texas has these for San Antonio. Okay, next slide. Well, let's go back. So let's go back one, please. So there in the very corner, you can see Commerce, okay, and you can see Bowie. So this square rectangle there in the bottom right-hand corner is a brick building. It's a commercial building. It's 3 or 4 stories tall. And let's go back one more. So all this area here, you see Crockett Street, so everything south of Crockett Street and north of Commerce there at the bottom, River Center Mall. So all this disappeared to make way for River Center Mall. Okay, forward, forward. And so this building, Fairmont Hotel, sitting here at the corner, Conservation Society said, we should save that building. And the developer said, you want it? Come and get it. So they did. So Alamo Architects stepped in, and they said, and the engineering was there. And the question was not could they do it. You may remember if you were here what the question was, but let me show you a couple pictures. Okay, so they jacked the building up. Next slide. They put it on wheels. They dragged it across Commerce Street, and this is Market Street. They came down in front of the Convention Center. You can see the Lila Cockrell Theater there. That's the first of the two Marriotts that's in the middle of this picture. And the issue wasn't could they do it. This is the pneumatic tires. The issue was, would the bridge hold? The bridge wasn't designed to carry a 3-story brick hotel. Next slide. Now they're in front of the Hilton Palacio del Rio. Went on down. And some y'all remember it. I mean, it took about 5 or 6 days. It was all week long. And then they backed it into the corner, the southwest corner of Nueva and Alamo Street. Next slide. And so that's it with the red brick. Now, my architect friends will say, can a building learn? What? Can a building learn? What are you talking about? Okay, the old building is the red brick building with cream-colored masonry detailing. The new building has learned from the old building. The new building is the same height, same massing, it's pulled back a little bit, but it's cream-colored brick with red masonry detailing. Okay? It's not trying to be an old building. There it's respecting, but it's a really nice resolution. Alamo Architects, they're still around here in San Antonio. Nice resolution, the Fairmont Hotel. Okay, yes, sir. Yeah, early 80s. Did I put the year on there? 85? Okay, 85. Yeah. Okay, next slide. 85. Thank you. All right. Okay, who doesn't love train stations, right? And we're lucky in San Antonio because we have some beautiful ones. Or had. They're not all there now. So these, of course, you recognize two. The one on the top left, you recognize that one from the east side, and the one on the bottom, the Missouri Pacific, originally a different line. Next slide. So this is the one we see over on the east side of downtown on Commerce Street. So Sunset, this was for the Southern Pacific Station. Really a beautiful building. This building burned shortly after it opened. They rebuilt it. And when you see pictures of it, usually they're including this image next, this saguaro cactus. Makes it into all these photographs of this train station. But a really beautiful building. Around turn of the century, 1900, 1903. Next. Okay, and then on the west side of downtown, you recognize this building, still standing. And so this is the International and Great Northern Railroad. This was the railroad that would take you into Mexico, okay? And so this has had a number of different lives. Let me show you, next slide. This is kind of the back side, so they carried both rail and also both freight as well as passenger. Next slide. Then it was taken over by Missouri Pacific, and they finally stopped running here in 1978. And this building sat vacant, again, for over 20 years. Well, what happens when you have a building that's vacant? Deteriorates, and people help it deteriorate. And so let me show you, I think I've got some pictures of the inside. Yeah, this is the inside when it was completed. And so this is, I think it says 1908 there. And the architect was Harvey Page, San Antonio architect. And you see this is the ticket window. You see the three little arches there. And above there would have been where the circle is. It's not there yet, would have been where the clock was. This is the lobby, the central lobby. Let me show you this is what it looked like. Generations Federal Credit Union, to their credit, they bought this building and they did a beautiful restoration. And then they were there for a little less than 20 years and they sold it to VIA. And so now VIA Metro has offices there. So next slide. So when I went to my friend Christine Vigna and I said, do you have any old photographs? And she said, yeah, do you want the original train station? I said, what original train station? She said, that original train station. I had no idea that there was a station, International and Great Northern, before that big giant one with that copper Indian on top. Okay, next slide. All right. Now, maybe I'll finish with this one. What time is it? 2:30 already? Okay, yeah, all right. Okay, I'll do a couple more. So this building's no longer standing. So of course, because it's no longer standing, it's my favorite. But this was the Katy. So the Katy was a nickname for the rail line, which was the Missouri, Kansas, Texas, KT, Katy. And so this was the end of the line, the southern terminus of this line. And so they had an architect from New York City to come down and design a building for this train station. And they got his name there, Frederick Sterner. This is a postcard. And he was enchanted by our Spanish colonial missions. And he went out and he measured Mission Concepcion. And those two towers that he used as the entrance were copies of the towers, the bell towers at Mission Concepcion. So next image. So just down a little bit. Has that decorative front. Now, this building was torn down in 1968. Say again? The towers too. But I'm told that decorative front was taken off and stuck on a building over at Los Patios. Now, I've seen a photograph. It doesn't really look like that. But anyway, maybe it is. A beautiful building, but like a lot of these trains, they stopped running passenger rail because, of course, cars and freeway and buses and then air travel. And freight then began losing business to trucks and so forth, so it just didn't make any sense. And so they finally shut this down. Next slide. You don't see a lot of interior postcards or interior photographs of train stations. This is a postcard I was real pleased to find a few years ago. Please don't ask me how much I paid for it. So there's that old joke for people that collect things. When I die, don't tell my wife how much I really paid for those things. Otherwise, she's going to sell them for the price that I told her. I just paid her. All right, so next slide. And so beautiful image. I'm doing some research on a photographer, commercial photographer in San Antonio. His name was Harvey Pattison, and this is a Harvey Pattison photograph. Really gorgeous building. Where is this, Bruce? So you see the car there on the right. That car is on Cesar Chavez, we call it today, all right? And the other corner then, going off to our left, that's South Flores, okay? You know where that is? Okay, let me show you. Next, it's La Quinta. So directly south, across South Flores here, is where the HEB SoFlo market is, if that helps get you oriented a little bit. Now, behind the La Quinta, over there where I think there's a Texas flag you can kind of see there, that's where San Pedro Creek runs. And you know, they've just finished putting all that money into San Pedro Creek and so forth, but they never got the okay to run San Pedro Creek and decorate San Pedro Creek on this block and a half, 2 blocks. So San Pedro Creek goes underground, goes underneath the street here, runs for 2 blocks, and then comes up at Guadalupe Street. But if you poke around, and I'm a poker around, I like to poke around San Antonio, I really love San Antonio, so I like to poke around in that area, and so what did I see next? Tracks. Tracks from the MKT, from the Katy station. And so this is construction that's going on when they're redoing San Pedro Creek in that area. And so I started hyperventilating, and I thought, this is exciting. So I called my friend at the River Authority, and I said, now are y'all going to incorporate some ways? The only thing that's left of the Katy station would be these tracks. These tracks whirled right up into this area and right alongside the San Pedro Creek. And the answer is no. So those tracks are gone. They're in a landfill somewhere in San Antonio. So the only thing we have to remember is these photographs, the Katy station. Next. I'll finish on this one. One more train. Anybody remember this one? This was a surprise to me. So this is the SAPRR, the San Antonio and Aransas Pass Railroad. And so this was intended, it's a San Antonio based railroad, and they intended to try to steal some business from Southern Pacific. Southern Pacific, really a dominant railroad in Texas at the time. They were headquartered in Houston. And one of the things that they could brag about, Southern Pacific, is they could get you to the Deepwater port. They could get you to Galveston. They could get you to the Gulf Coast. And so the idea here is, let's create a rail line that can get us to the Gulf Coast without having to go to Southern Pacific. Take you to Aransas Pass. Take you to Corpus Christi. Get you to the Gulf, okay? And so how do you market it? Anyway, so this building went up, and they were, this next slide. And so the SAP, and so they talk about maybe they sell it because it's great hunting, great fishing. We make connections to these other streets, these other cities. Next. Mission line, so how do you market yourself? Okay, next. So here's this image again. Now, they were undercapitalized, so they were buying used rolling stock, locomotives and rail cars. They were buying used rails. They were even buying used railroad ties. And they say that in some cases, they were just putting those ties directly on the ground. They didn't even put ballast to the gravel and so forth. So that led to what? That led to derailments. Yeah, wrecks. There's a particular famous or an infamous wreck where they're going across the river at Hallettsville. Huge rainstorms underway, so the river is flooded, and the bridge collapsed, and the whole train goes into loss of life. They say all the onlookers that came, though, were kind of happy because one of the rail cars was full of bottles of liquor. Hey, they're floating around out here. So yeah, maybe things weren't so bad after all. Exactly. So anyway, they went kaput, and they were taken over in the early, I think the 1920s. This building then was demolished, as I said here, 1939. Porter Loring, when he was a young boy, 13, 14 years old, he sold tickets at this railroad station. And some of the seats that were there in the lobby of this railroad station are still in use. When the station was being torn down, they got those benches, and they're in use at Little Rhine Steakhouse in La Villita as some of the booths. So your question to me is, okay, well, that's what's used to be there. So what's there today? Next slide. Salvation Army. So this is South Flores in the foreground and South Alamo at the cross. So the new city building, the one-stop development center, is catty-cornered across from the Salvation Army. Okay, I think that's all I'm going to force you guys to listen to. Anybody have any questions or any observations? Yes, ma'am. I grew up in Texas, about 3.5 hours north of here, a little town called Stephenville. You know Stephenville in Erath County? It's a county seat, so we're lucky that we have one of the James Riley Gordon courthouses, like the San Antonio James Riley Gordon courthouse. Anyway, yes, sir. Excellent. Wow. How long did it take to travel from San Antonio to Kansas on the Katy? I don't know, but okay. I had a fun time. and can still tell the story. Okay. All right, thanks very much, everybody. I appreciate your interest.
Thank you so much. Anybody learn something new today? All right. We'll have to figure out a way to get you, maybe we'll charter some kind of I'd like to get one of those trolley buses things, but they don't charter them. I've tried to charter them other times, but if we could get something like that and just spend a day with you and have lunch, and it would be fun. It would be fun. Yeah, I've only been in San Antonio for 9 years, but I love old buildings, and I love like the pictures of your question. So what was here before this? And that's exciting. That's fun. Well, thank you so much. Make sure that you sign up for the upcoming events out in the hallway. Suzanne, you want to tell us a little bit about the Peach Jazz Pumpkins? And Peach Jazz is, if I can remember, Presbyterian Children's Home and Services.
Well, this was Peach Jazz Week. We also had our luncheon on Tuesday, which I think everybody that was there, we heard from one of the ladies who was a single mother who was extremely depressed and couldn't keep a job, who went out there and got a job, kept it for a while, got 2 promotions, and when she left, she bought a house. She's the first person here in San Antonio that has left buying a house, the second one here in Texas. But Kathy and Mary and Stanley and I went yesterday over to Peach Jazz. We first went to the H-E-B nearby where we bought 40 pumpkins. They had them all ready for us and put them in the car. That way I didn't have to pick any of them up. I was really thrilled about that. And we got there and we had 2 different people, 2 different vehicles with pumpkins in it. So it didn't take us very long to put them out. Mary and I did not pick up pumpkins. We just checked off the numbers and the apartment numbers. But we finished, we met at H-E-B at 11, and at 11:55 we were finished. And as we were finished, one of the mothers from out there stopped and thanked us for the pumpkins already. But it was a really big Peach Jazz week.
Thank you. Thank you, Suzanne. Suzanne is kind of our rep there, and I think the first time we collected money to purchase pumpkins, she had them stuffed in her trunk or something at that point. Yeah, and I learned when I moved to Texas, pumpkins don't last long in this heat, especially if you carve them. In Vermont, you could leave your pumpkin out for a long time because it would freeze. And then when it starts to thaw out, that's when it starts to fall apart. But so just wanted just to kind of complete the story of the little pumpkin heads that we were collecting. And it was fun to go to the luncheon and to see at least 4, maybe 5 tables from First Presbyterian Church. So many of you were there for that lunch. And that's just a little piece of the puzzle of what we do here sometimes. So let's make sure that you do take advantage of the upcoming things. I think we might have 1 or 2 tickets left for Sound of Music. But if you haven't signed up for the lunches in November, please do that today and in the next couple of weeks. It's so fun to be together. And thank you again for being here with us. And I could sit and listen to you forever and not even have lunch. But I think we probably need to have lunch, right? So let's pray together, ask God's blessing on the rest of our time. Father, we're thankful for who you are and what you do. Thank you for the opportunity we have to learn something about old San Antonio And as we look around us as we're driving in and out and walking, to be able to say, I know what was here before. I know a little bit of history of this building. And so thank you for just the insight that you've given us today. Pray that you be with us around these tables. Thank you for those that have prepared this meal, those that will serve it, and just give us great fellowship as we join together in eating together. Ask your blessing on the food. In Jesus' name.